colour to be trooped today is the first, or Queen's colour of the 1st Battalion, the Grenadier Guards, presented by Her Majesty the Queen at Buckingham Palace in 1967. It is positioned in front of number 8 Guard, and directly opposite them, in front of the back garden wall of Downing Street, are the massed bands from all 5 Guards regiments. 260 musicians, 100 more in the Corps of Drums. The drum majors in their splendid state clothing, velvet caps, gold coats, aprons of scarlet and gold, white knee breeches and gaiters. These splendid uniforms which they wear only when the Queen is present, which she will be at any moment. Commanding the parade in the centre of Horse Guards, the Field Officer and Brigade Waiting, Lieutenant Colonel Bernard Gordon Lennox, who joined the Grenadier Guards in 1953 and is the 10th member of his family to serve with the regiment. He's riding Mistral, horse which he's ridden before on Horse Guards when he was Brigade Major, responsible for organising this parade. And now along the Mall, the Queen's procession approaches, a splendid sight. She's led by the first 2 divisions of the Sovereign's escort found by the Life Guards. Her Majesty the Queen, wearing the uniform of Colonel-in-Chief of the Grenadier Guards, the regiment whose colour is to be trooped today. Beside her, the Duke of Edinburgh, who is the new Colonel of the Grenadier Guards. The Queen wearing the white plume of the Grenadiers in her cap, sash and star of the Garter. As the Sovereign's escort arrives at Horse Guards Parade, the Queen riding the horse given to her by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Burmese, which she's ridden every year at this parade since 1969. The Duke of Edinburgh on Bachelor Gay. And already in the Major General's office, her mother, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and her 2 sons, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward, Princess Margaret and her 2 children are awaiting. Her other son, the Prince of Wales, rides with her for the first time as Colonel of the Welsh Guards. He has succeeded his father in March of this year to that appointment. 4 troopers of the Life Guards, the Brigade Major, lead the royal procession out to the line. Behind the Duke of Edinburgh, the Prince of Wales, his plume of white, green and white, Colonel of the Welsh Guards, and on a grey beside him, the Duke of Kent, the new Colonel of the Scots Guards, succeeding his uncle, the late Duke of Gloucester. Scots Guards wear no plume in their bearskin. Prince of Wales wearing wings. And so begins the inspection of the line, the first of the 5 parts of the Queen's Birthday Parade. And Major John Smiley, commissioned into the Grenadier Guards in 1954, knows that parade well from the inside looking out, so to speak, and he'll tell you about the other parts.
After the inspection, there's the troop by the mass bands of the Guards Division. Then there's the actual trooping the colour ceremony from which the parade gets its name. The 4th phase is the march past in slow and quick time by the Foot Guards, and finally there is the walk and trot past by the Sovereign's escort. Now the Queen, riding along the front of the Coldstream Guards, and moves round the left flank of number 8 Guard, and you see the Adjutant in Brigade Waiting, Captain Fenwick, on his horse, and immediately behind the Queen, the 3 Royal Colonels and Earl Mountbatten of Burma, personal ADC to the Queen and Colonel of the Life Guards. There now is the sovereign standard of the Life Guards, which the Queen salutes. And now she has almost completed her inspection of the sovereign's escort, drawn up in front of the Guards Memorial.
The Duke of Edinburgh also wearing wings, and the Major of the Parade's horse being somewhat fractious. As the little procession makes its way back to the saluting base beneath the window of the Major General's office. Two very critical brothers, no doubt, looking down on this parade, watching their elder brother riding in it for the first time. And when the escort and the attending officers have taken their position, the troop will begin, as distinct from the trooping. This is a musical display by the massed bands, countermarching in slow and quick time. The massed bands of all 5 Guards regiments. They are under the direction of Major Horabin of the Irish Guards, the new Senior Director of Music in the Household Division. Senior Drum Major of the division, Drum Major Trussler, gives the command, and the traditional slow march is the Huguenots.
drummer's call, command of the escort, passes from the captain to the subaltern, and the third stage of the parade begins, the phase when the actual trooping the colour takes place. The escort marches forward, commanded by the subaltern, Lieutenant Lisinski, who won the Sword of Honour at Sandhurst and was commissioned into the Grenadier Guards in March 1973. They march to the tune, the British Grenadiers, not because they are grenadiers, but because the tune is traditionally used by all regiments at this point of the parade as the right flank company of every battalion that used to be a grenadier company. As soon as they are in line again, they will mark time in order to allow the mass bands to cross their front. The order to march forward has to be given with precise timing. Now, Regimental Sergeant Major Holloway, who joined the regiment in 1951 and who with 2 years broken service completes 22-year service in the regiment this year, marches round the left flank and will take the colour from the escort, who is Sergeant Masterman, and hand it to the ensign. The Regimental Sergeant Major salutes with his sword, and this parade is the only occasion in which a Regimental Sergeant Major carries a drawn sword. The ensign, wearing the white colour belt, is Lieutenant Nicholas Coates, who joined the regiment in 1972. Having received the colour, apart from 2 short periods, when he will have the colour at the carry for about 45 minutes, something which requires no mean physical effort. And having received the colour, the subaltern will order the escort to present arms, and you will notice the 4 flanking non-commissioned officers turn outwards and come to the high port, symbolising the escort's protection of the colour. The ensign takes post behind the subaltern. The Regimental Sergeant Major moves around the left flank to his original position in the rear of the escort. The sergeant who was holding the colour and the 2 sentries move to their positions among the ranks. As the escort moves towards number 8 guard, the complicated maneuver of the spin wheel takes place while the mass bands of 360 musicians and drummers change direction while still retaining the same formation. The details have never been committed to paper, but the technique is handed down over the years by word of mouth.
Guards present arms, and the colour is trooped along the ranks. To the tune, the Grenadiers' Slow March. In 1700, as the army became organised as a regular force, battalion colours replaced the old company flags and individual devices around which leaders rallied their men in battle. It became the practice to carry the colours down the ranks at the end of a day's march, and to escort them with due honour to the billet in which they were to be lodged for the night. The lodging became the place of assembly for the troops in a sudden emergency. So the colour was first paraded and then hung in a doorway or window to mark the battalion headquarters and alarm post in a strange town. Lodging the colour differed little from today's trooping. The colour is honoured, acknowledged, and has come to represent the spirit of the regiment to whom it belongs. It was in 1805 that trooping the colour first honoured the sovereign's birthday. Queen's colour of the 1st Battalion, the Grenadier Guards, with the 44 battle honours awarded to the battalion since 1680.
The escort now approaches its original position on the right of the line, and the captain, who has resumed command from the subaltern, will order the escort to present arms.
So the great march past begins. First of all, the slow march past. And the parade led by the colour which has just been trooped, and by the escort to the colour and number 2 guard found by the 1st Battalion, the Grenadier Guards. They march past their Colonel-in-Chief to the Grenadiers' regimental slow march Scipio by hand. There you see the colour. In the centre, a golden crown. Beneath the crown, a flaming grenade. And on either side, the battle honours. Numbers 3 and 4 guards found by the 1st Battalion, the Welsh Guards, march past their Colonel-in-Chief, regimental slow march men of Harlech. 5, 6, 7 and 8 Guards are found by the 1st and 2nd Battalion, the Coldstream Guards. March past the Queen for their regimental slow march, Figaro by Mozart. Now the quick march past. The tune, the British Grenadiers. The men of the 1st Battalion, the Grenadier Guards. Escort colour number 2 Guard. March past the Queen and past their new Colonel, the Duke of Edinburgh. Rising of the Lark, the regimental quick march of the Welsh Guards. March past their Colonel-in-Chief and their new Colonel, the Prince of Wales. Remaining 4 Guards found by the men of the 1st and 2nd Battalions, the Coldstream Guards, who march past their regimental quick march, Milanolo. So the Foot Guards have marched past in slow and quick time. Now it's the turn of the senior corps of the British Army, the 2 regiments of the Household Cavalry. Led by the sovereign standard of the Life Guards, presented on Horse Guards Parade here in 1973. Cavalry to the left, to the right, the trumpeter. The 1st and 2nd Divisions of the Sovereign's escort. Rank past, found by the Life Guards in scarlet tunics, white plumes falling from their helmets. Regimental slow march of the Life Guards. All the horses are aged 6 to 16 years. They're mostly black, and many of them come from Ireland. All those who joined since last September have names beginning with the letter A. Blues and Royals, blue tunics, red plumes from their helmets. And at the rear of the Blues and Royals, the 2 farriers of the 2 regiments, with the gleaming implements of their trade. Blues and Royals farrier with the red plume, the Life Guards farrier with a black plume, both with blue tunics. Now the trumpeter, who rides not on a black horse but on a grey horse, will sound the signal for the trot. Massed mounted band of the two regiments in the centre of the parade ground. The two drum horses at the front, Hector and Hercules. And the trot past begins to the tune Guildhall by Major Richards, who is the director of music of the Life Guards and is directing the mass bands of the mounted regiments today. Most of the troopers on parade joined the army within the last 2 years. Only 1 in 20 had ridden before. 14 weeks basic training at Guards Depot and 20 weeks to train a volunteer for the mounted regiments to ride well enough to appear on parade. All these fine horses over 16 hands high. That's 5 feet 4 to the shoulder. Household cavalry trot past to the traditional tune, the Keel Roll. Now the loyal birthday greetings of the men of the Household Division are conveyed to their Colonel-in-Chief, Her Majesty the Queen.
So another Queen's Birthday Parade comes to an end. And Her Majesty leaves Horse Guards Parade at the head of her Foot Guards, whom you have seen today in their ceremonial role. But don't forget that these same soldiers are also operational soldiers, available to serve anywhere in the world, and their tasks are very varied. And whatever tasks are given to us, it is our long tradition of service to our sovereign and our country, which is foremost in our minds and spurs us on to strive for the highest possible standards in all we do.
And so the end of this colourful ceremonial, a pageant, some may think, of days that are gone, a glory that was. But perhaps instead a timely reminder of something that the British people can still do rather well, and which is not only a military parade, but a fine display of those enduring human qualities, skill, precision, discipline and service, which have delivered our nation from adversity more than once in days gone by. For more than 300 years, the regiments of Foot Guards have carried colours. These are the colours of Her Majesty's Coldstream Regiment of Foot Guards being marched off parade for the last time. The colours bear 43 of the 112 battle honours won by this single regiment in 3 centuries of service to the Crown. And although the function of colours is now entirely ceremonial, they're no longer carried into battle, they still represent something as special as the spirit of a regiment to those who serve in it. It was on the green lawns of the home park behind the royal apartments of Windsor Castle that families, friends and Coldstreamers of several generations gathered on the last day of April to see Her Majesty the Queen, Colonel-in-Chief of the regiment, as she is of all 7 regiments of the Household Division, present colours to the 2nd Battalion, the Coldstream Guards. First, the Queen's colour, carried on royal occasions and by the Queen's Guard when the court is in residence. And secondly, the regimental colour, based on the Union flag. Colours to replace the colours borne by the battalion for the last 12 years, and which we saw marched off a few moments ago. The new Queen's colour nearest to us will be the colour to be trooped this year on Horse Guards at the Queen's birthday parade. Her Majesty addresses the regiment.
I know that I give these colours into good hands. Wherever your duty may call, I wish you Godspeed and a safe return.
Windsor Castle only 9 days after the Queen's 50th birthday. Her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, spent her 50th birthday at Balmoral. It was May, and she decreed that an official celebration should be held some weeks later in London. Today, on the official birthday of Queen Elizabeth II, this is London. And in front of the handsome clock tower and the Horse Guards building, headquarters of the Household Division and of London District, between Whitehall and St James's Park. 8 guards are drawn up on one of London's largest open spaces, a parade ground that measures 160 yards from north to south and 140 yards from east to west. On the right flank, the escort for the colour is found by the 2nd Battalion, the Coldstream Guards. So is number 2 Guard. And numbers 3 and 4 Guards are found by the 1st Battalion of the same regiment. They formed part of Britain's first regular fighting force, Cromwell's new model army. Later they became King's men and part of the Sovereign's personal bodyguard. They wear a red plume on the right of the bearskin, buttons in 2s as the 2nd Guards Regiment, although their proud motto proclaims them second to none. And their regimental badge is the Star of the Garter. Numbers 5 and 6 Guards forming the northwest corner of the parade are found by the 1st Battalion, the Grenadier Guards. The average height of number 5 Guard in their bearskin caps is 7.5 to 8 feet. They're men from the Queen's Company. White plume to the left, regular buttons as the 1st Guards Regiment, and the regimental badge, the Royal Cipher, ER, reversed and interlaced, surrounded by the Garter, surmounted by the Imperial Crown. 7 and 8 Guards are found by the 1st Battalion, the Scots Guards. So the 3 senior regiments of Foot Guards are on parade this morning. Scots Guards, no plume in the bearskin, buttons in threes, and the regimental badge is the star of the most ancient and most noble Order of the Thistle. In front of number 7 Guard, the new Queen's colour of the 2nd Battalion, the Coldstream Guards, colour held by Company Quartermaster Sergeant Barry Smith. The escort sentries are brothers, both Lance Corporals, Kenneth and Peter Larkin, whose father is a quartermaster in the regiment. And to the south of the parade, the massed bands of all 5 regiments of Foot Guards. In addition, the corps of drums of the 3 battalions of Grenadier and Coldstream Guards on parade, the pipes and drums of the Scots Guards, and the pipers of the Irish Guards. And the massed bands whose music contributes so much to this unrivaled parade are under the direction of the Senior Director of Music, the Household Division, for the last 18 months, Major Horabin of the Irish Guards. In front, the drum majors in their state dress with white gaiters and gold-fringed crimson aprons. The whole splendid scene and commanding the parade, the Field Officer and Brigade Waiting, Lieutenant Colonel the Honourable H.E.C. Willoughby, commanding officer of the 2nd Battalion, the Coldstream Guards, and he's on a bay gelding called Royal Oak. A Yorkshireman, he's many family connections with the Coldstream. His daughter's just married an officer serving in the regiment. And this is not only the Queen's birthday parade, it's Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Willoughby's. He's 44 today. 7,500 spectators in these stands around Horse Guards and sitting in the summer sunshine. And no more welcome and honoured spectator than the royal lady who watches with her guests from this window above the central arch of Horse Guards. It's a huge window and gives a rather misleading idea of the quite small room, now the Major General's, but once the Commander-in-Chief's room and Wellington's office. And it's from there that Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, her family and her guests will watch the parade. Her Majesty the Queen arrives at Horse Guards wearing the uniform of Colonel-in-Chief of the Coldstream Guards. Their red plume, the Star of the Garter. And riding the horse she was given by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Burmese, as she has done each year since 1969. And on her arrival at Horse Guards, she salutes the Queen Mother, watching from the window above. The Brigade Major of the Household Division, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Guthrie of the Welsh Guards, on Zebedee, is followed by 4 troopers of the Blues and Royals. As he escorts Her Majesty the Queen, who is accompanied by His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, Colonel of the Welsh Guards, His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, and His Royal Highness the Duke of Kent, Colonel of the Scots Guards. Duke of Edinburgh on his right, the Prince of Wales. To begin the birthday parade with the inspection of the line. Major John Smiley of the Grenadier Guards, who has marched and ridden in this parade many times, is with me once again.
There are 5 phases to the parade: the inspection of the line and the Sovereign's escort, the troop by the massed bands, the actual trooping the colour ceremony, the march past by the Foot Guards, and the rank past by the Sovereign's escort. The Queen salutes the colour. And this inspection is not the mere formality it might appear, as the Queen has a keen eye for detail and will certainly notice anything which is incorrect. And as she turns the corner of the left of number 8 Guard, you now hear the music change from La Plume Rouge to the quick march Knightsbridge. The Queen now goes on to inspect the Sovereign's escort of the Household Cavalry, salutes the Sovereign Standard of the Blues and Royals, which you see there, and which she presented here on Horse Guards Parade on the 30th of May, 1973.
Behind Her Majesty the Queen, Prince of Wales to the right, the Duke of Edinburgh centre, and to his left, the Duke of Kent. And behind them, the Master of the Horse, Duke of Beaufort, and Earl Mountbatten, the gold stick in waiting. Princess Anne and Prince Edward watch from the window above. There's the Queen and her escort and her accompanying officers arrive back at Horse Guards. There follows the troop, as distinct from the trooping. This is a musical display of countermarching by the massed bands. Senior Drum Major of the Household Division, Drum Major Wigan, gives the command, and the slow march is the Huguenots by Meyerbeer.
Sergeant Austin beats the drummer's call. Command of the escort passes from the captain to the subaltern, and the escort will shortly march out to receive the colour. Escort to the colour marches forward to the tune of the British Grenadiers, and you may be puzzled why the Coldstream Regiment of Foot Guards should do so, but this tune is traditionally used by all regiments at this point of the parade, as the right flank company of every battalion used to be a grenadier company. And in a moment, the escort will do a left form to bring itself in line opposite the colour, which is at the far side of the parade ground. The form is a drill movement used on many ceremonial parades when troops marching in line and with a wide frontage have to change direction. It is easier to execute than a wheel, which would also take longer to complete. The subaltern keeps the escort marking time just long enough for the mass bands to clear their front before he gives the command forward. This requires precise judgment if an undignified collision is to be avoided. And now all eyes are on the escort for the colour. There's the subaltern of the escort, Captain Ian McNeill. Regimental Sergeant Major Smith now moves round the left flank of the escort before taking over the colour and handing it over to the ensign. Sergeant Major Smith joined the Coldstream Guards in 1954, and this is the only occasion on which a regimental sergeant major draws his sword on parade. He salutes the colour, which is held by Company Quartermaster Sergeant Smith. Turns about and now marches towards the ensign, Second Lieutenant David Pemberton, who was commissioned into the Coldstream Guards last November and whose father commanded the 1st Battalion of the Coldstream Guards. The escort, having received the colour, now steps off, and as they do so, the mass bands begin their complicated spin wheel when 358 musicians, pipers and drummers change direction while retaining the same formation. The escort manoeuvre to the left of the parade prior to trooping the colour through the ranks.
In 1700, as the army gradually became organised as a regular force, battalion colours replaced the old company flags and individual devices around which leaders rallied their men in battle. It became the practice to carry the colours down the ranks at the end of a day's march and to escort them with due honour to the billet in which they were to be lodged for the night. The lodging became the place of assembly for the troops in a sudden emergency. So the colour was first paraded and then hung in a doorway or window to mark out the battalion headquarters and alarm post in a strange town. Lodging the colour differed little from today's ceremony. The colour is trooped, honoured, acknowledged and recognised by all ranks. And it was in 1805 that trooping the colour first honoured the sovereign's birthday. In the centre of the Crimson Queen's colour, only 6 weeks old, a silver star surrounded by a blue garter, surmounted by a golden crown. In the left-hand top corner, the Union flag. And only 1/3 of the regiment's battle honours are emblazoned upon it.
After the escort has returned to its original position on the right of the line, the next phase, the march past, will begin.
Regimental slow march of the Coldstream Guards. Figaro by Mozart. Regimental slow march of the Grenadier Guards is the stately tune from Handel's opera Scipio. The regimental slow march of the Scots Guards, garb of old Gaul, composed by General John Reed, a soldier of fortune. Quick march of the Coldstream Guards is Milanolo, a German tune composed by Herr Johann Valentin Hamm. march of the Grenadier Guards, the British Grenadiers. Quick march of the Scots Guards, the traditional tune, Heel Laddie. The adjutant, Major Somerville, on Prudence, a bay mare. The rank past of the Household Cavalry, led by the Blues and Royals, their red plumes and their black horses. All these horses aged from 6 to 16 years, all over 16 hands, high and mostly Irish. The Life Guards with their white plumes and their distinctive onion tops. The tune is the keel roll. The Household Division, having marched past, the field officer gives the order for a royal salute, conveying the loyal birthday greetings of the 7 regiments of the Household Division to their Colonel-in-Chief. And another Queen's Birthday Parade comes to an end. The colour of the 2nd Battalion, the Coldstream Guards, has been trooped. And the Queen rides back to Buckingham Palace at the head of her guards. Perhaps interesting to think that she has appeared in this parade more often than any serving officer or man. Behind her, the Field Officer and Brigade Waiting and the Duke of Edinburgh. And a spontaneous burst of applause in admiration for these men who have stood on parade for some hour and 3/4. Quarter of an hour, the escort of this colour becomes the Queen's Guard at Buckingham Palace and the Palace of St. James. An unchanging sight in a changing world. And if we live in a world with less respect for establishment, tradition and order than it had when the young Princess Elizabeth first rode from Horse Guards in 1947, one hopes it is at least a world with a little more respect for the lives of ordinary men and women. And surely it would be a poorer world without the tradition of service embodied in these historic regiments of the Household Division marching back down the Mall, and embodied too in the dedicated life and work of this one woman who, before the next birthday parade takes place, will have served this nation and Commonwealth as Queen for 25 years.